Okay, so today I'm going to teach a foot and shoulder class. So do you want a smaller ball for rolling out feet? Would that help you? So start, you have that one?
I like them all. All sizes welcome.
Yeah, there's extra so we can have like 5. Start standing. So we're gonna roll our feet out. Let's start, why don't you start just doing whatever feels good with the ball. Let's start with just like your own exploration. I don't wanna be on the squeak, but then I can't see you. Hello. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is that the idea of, actually, on that note, did I ever tell you guys one time Juniper said, "Mama, can I play with a ball?" And I got her a ball, and she started doing this. This was play. Rolling your foot out. It's like very different. Lupa knows how to play with the ball. No, it is play. So the idea of like how much time you're doing a particular thing in your life, because I think a lot of times because of the dominant idea of what exercise is, if we have a problem we want to work on, all of us, myself included, are like, oh, if I just schedule this exercise time twice a week, I'll get better from that, whatever that problem is. So, oh, I really didn't want you to get that pen. Can I have a pen? Thank you. Now she's gonna steal my class plan. Watch this. The idea of if your body is doing something that's, if you have pain, that's a symptom of something bigger. Like that's a signal that there are things in your body that are not working right, that probably haven't been working right for a long time. In order to correct that, maybe switch feet if you haven't already. In order to correct that, it's not possible if you say, I'm gonna do this thing twice a week, even if you do it for an hour, consider what percentage of time that is versus the rest of your week, right? It's probably like 0.05% or something. Like I could do quick math in my head, but then I'd get really distracted. But you get what I'm saying, right? If you're doing that only twice a week, it's not a good idea. So what I wanted to talk about and have you guys think about is that if you have a problem you want to fix, it really is only gonna get changed and fixed if you do corrective things throughout the day, every day. And it's like sometimes maybe you won't be as good, sometimes maybe you won't do everything every day, or maybe you'll skip a day. But the idea being that like, if I think, oh, I wanna work on dropping my ribs, even if I work on that once per day, there's like, if I work on it in the morning, there's a whole 23 hours where my body can forget about the new thing I'm trying to teach it. And that's very true with the way that our bodies retain movement, and especially most of our movement being sort of pre-programmed and not higher brain activity, but just habitual, like lower brain, brainstem type movement. If we want to change something, we really have to keep intervening. So even if you identify one thing, if you're having a problem that's like, oh, my calf is cramping, or oh, my pelvis gets too tight on this side, or my foot hurts, or my elbow hurts, whatever it is, like you can focus on that one problem, but try to focus on it many short times throughout a day, rather than like, I'm gonna schedule this and do it here, and then I'm gonna do it later. Because it's like a better use of your time. Oh, now there's that. It's a better use of your time to say like, I'm gonna take that hour and spread it out throughout the week. So maybe it's like 2 minutes at a time. Does that make sense? I like to remind myself of that. Sometimes I realize, oh, I'm just like getting lazy on, maybe I'm going through my day and I'm busy and I'm pretty active. Take your ball and put it under the front of your foot. So it's like your toes kind of drape over the ball. And keep your heel down and try to move the ball side to side. So you're just like articulating your front of your foot. Yeah, that's good. Try to move the ball side to side without moving. You can move your leg, but without moving your pelvis. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like we all get on autopilot, and it's good to remember that it's very useful. Sometimes it feels like you're not doing enough if you just spend 2 minutes doing a thing every couple of hours, but it's actually quite useful. It's probably more useful than if you spent an hour doing the same thing just once a day. And then it like frees up all kinds of time and gives you more options to do the other side.
So how does that look in your life? Do you set a timer or do you just?
So yeah, that's a good question. What I've been doing, so this was partially because of making the cards that I make. I started trying to make more games, and what I've realized is that the way for me not to get on autopilot is to kind of have a system that works for a little while, but it usually only works for a few days or a week, and then I have to find a new, like, because your brain wants something novel, and you're gonna pay attention to more things if it's novel. So sometimes it's a timer. One that I'm really fond of is setting something to remind me on top of my phone. So like the cards are actually perfect for that, or cards, you could make your own cards, like I do this exercise, I do that exercise. Before you use your phone, tell yourself, I'm going to do 2 of these, or I'm gonna do my 2 exercises. Like set a rock on top of your phone. I'm gonna do a rock with I'm gonna roll up my feet with a rock. Go back to the first foot. Try to just, with parallel feet, step onto the ball, and then step off. So make your feet about pelvis width apart, step forward, and then back. So you're just kind of stepping into the center of your arch. And then another good way to think about it is like, if you find specific, there are sometimes things you can fit in that will just start to become completely integrated. Like, I mean, my things are always changing because they're always changing, but you know, like brushing your teeth, you could say that's the time when I always do my standing balance. And I brush my teeth standing on one leg. And there's other things like, I wish I could condition myself whenever Juniper is like doing her 3-year-old breakdown whining where I get really frustrated, instead of like getting really focused and engaged with her, to like step back and start stretching, because that would make me more calm and I still would be able to pay attention to her. So if you can condition specific triggers, that's really useful, because sometimes that can become like a long-term thing where it's not just like, it's good to keep changing the game things like a timer or, you know, cards on top of phone or whatever it is, switch sides. But the long-term triggers are really good. Like for, you know, for some people it's like, I at least do these 3 when I wake up in the morning, and then I know I try to do these 3 again when I make lunch, when I fold laundry, when I finish writing, like whatever it is. And as we're working on feet are always good to work on because they're gonna help stack the rest of our body. So look down at your feet. Oh, take yourself up. Now we're gonna do toe lifts. They're very cute socks. So look down at your feet, and with the ball, let's go back to the first foot. So with the ball under your first foot, kind of like, excuse me, like, so behind the ball of your foot, so the front of your arch, not really the center or the heel, but the front, but not on the balls of the feet. See if you can lift all your toes and then drop all your toes. Can you curl your toes down to the floor? Then again, lift all your toes, drop all your toes. Now, can you lift just your big toe? It's not. Mine's not working right today. Try the other side. We're gonna try it without the ball too, but it's interesting to do this both ways. So ball under the front part of the arch, but not the balls of the toes. And lift all your toes. And then curl your toes. And then lift. Curl. Can you lift? Relax your toes, and then can you lift just your big toe? Mine's not working. Okay, so put that aside and put your feet on the mat. And actually, let's have you guys line up the outside edge of your foot straight. So put your outside edge of one foot on the side of the mat. And let's do that foot first, and then we'll line up the other foot. first see if you can lift your big toe. And then put your big toe down. Thanks, Mom. And then, can you lift your big toe again? Keep your big toe up. Can you lift your second toe so that now you have 2 toes off the ground?
Or 3.
Or 3. Then, can you lift 3 toes? So bring all first 3 up. Then 4. Then 5. Now, this is usually a bit easier. Starting at the pinky, put down the pinky toe, the 4th toe, the 3rd toe. My 3rd and my 2nd toe are just like hopelessly taped together right now. And then your big toe. Turn around. Do the other foot. Keep both feet in parallel, but just use the outside edge of the mat as a guide. And try to have both feet parallel and your legs, so put your hands on your pelvis and see if you can find your legs ASIS distance apart, so the hip points. Yeah. And let's also remind ourselves to back our weight up, to put your weight on your heels more than your toes.
Okay.
This is a really good game for you, isn't it?
That's what we call hips.
Okay.
So lift up your big toe. Put your big toe back down. Lift up your big toe and your second toe. And your 3rd toe. And your 4th toe. And your 5th toe. And then put them back down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're gonna do some more toe lifts when we're sitting. Get with a partner. So you guys are gonna be partners. Joanne, come and be my partner. I'm gonna need extra help. I'm not nursing. She's gonna keep yelling at me if I didn't nurse her. Okay, so we're gonna work on knee rotation. So can you roll your pants up above your knee? So what I wanna do, I'm gonna have my partner help me first. So you're gonna help me find parallel knee pits.
Okay.
So first show them what we're looking at for where, let me try to totally relax. Can you guys see how those 2 lines coming down from my hamstrings straight up and down through the back of my knee? They're facing out. I think you mentioned this last week.
Yeah.
So my partner's gonna go and kind of lightly touch there and help me figure out when they're parallel. So right now, I know they're not parallel because I totally relaxed. So how are we doing there?
That's good.
Wow, so that didn't take as much work as it used to be. The right one's harder, yes. So then, so why don't you guys do that first?
So it's yours. Okay, so still better than it was.
Oh, it looks like your rotation's better.
This one's yes, your rotation's a lot better. Yeah.
Do this one.
Is that any more?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's different.
Good.
It's actually really different than the last time I saw it.
That is not.
Standing on the
It's
leg.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I can hold it what way.
Yeah.
What are your
Like,
quads?
how
What are
it- how
your-
I just far out. I do that, like I do all
Yes.
this other stuff, but I don't know how to. Like this
I wonder if it's like lower leg strength.
That looks good here, and then maybe a little up. Okay.
ankle things, I think, so.
Skip.
Right, that's why I was thinking about that for the whole.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Turn it backwards and fix the mirror. I'll show you. What you should do, okay, so make the feet parallel. I've done it before, so. So stand without rotation, what does it look like? Oh yeah, so you're definitely. Brought that tissue in the
Thanks,
glove.
Mom.
Okay, internal
Yeah.
rotation.
I'm gonna do it, and
rotated,
you're
so-
bend over.
So-
Have you done this before where you're rotating or?
Here, once you're
Okay, first.
So, like, ideally, you would not be resting all the time.
Yeah, ideally, so through sitting,
Okay.
it's a sedentary lifestyle, and just not squatting, all kinds of things for our legs. They just have evolved to do that.
Okay.
Yes, and it's okay for a lot of artists
So,
to come up with.
while they're still working
Pretty
on this,
common.
you guys take the next step, and can you help each other do that without quad gripping? So,
Okay.
have we done some, we've done a little bit of that in class, right? Okay, so first maybe get your kneecaps lifting and lowering a couple times. And then you can do the same thing like with your partner. You can like give tactile feedback, like come here, Joanne, and I'll show them with you. So once you get the rotation, you'll go and rotate a little bit. Then I want to look and see. Can you relax this? That one's pretty good. This one's pretty good too. She's been working really hard on this.
I know that I have to put my,
Yeah, compensation.
that I have to make sure that I'm lined up here, and to do that, I have to really bend
Bolster,
forward and
yeah.
let that
So
stand up straight, I'll
and-
fall backwards.
the reason you're doing that is that it's like, you can kind of cheat to do it pretty easily by just gripping your quads and jamming your legs into position, which isn't really good for your knees. Yeah, and it's like, it's a strategy, and sometimes it takes quite a while to change that. And that's actually something that I feel really differently in my body. When I started learning this way of rotating, I would feel a lot of pressure in my knees, and it takes a long time to figure out like relaxing the quads.
But it's also, when we did it in swim, it's also okay to lift up your arches,
Right.
and that kind of relieves some
Yeah, that's true.
pressure. But you gotta pay attention to what, gripping and stuff, I understand, but,
Yeah.
because mine was way,
Yeah, so
way-
actually, Abby, for you, that might be a strategy to take. Can you show that, Mom?
Okay, so,
And maybe you can show it too.
yeah,
So, if you're, it's really effective for her, that she doesn't keep her foot down.
Yeah.
It's like she lets her foot lift up, because there's so many levels of compensation that happen throughout the tissue and the bones.
Okay, so yeah, what it's really showing in this, if you just put your feet out like that, and look at somebody doing it, you'll see that it automatically rotates it, and what it's showing you is a relationship between this and your tight feet. And so, that tightness is what's keeping, it's all connected, and so, then after you go like that, you can try to put the ball of your foot down, and I think there's another good point to not, I think when I was learning this for a long time after learning it, that I was stressing this part because I was forcing that, and I was also using the quads to do it, and so by starting kind of at this level and realizing that your toes and foot are involved, it's maybe a more gentle way
Yeah, that's a
to
good point.
start adjusting our internal
Yeah.
rotation pattern.
Which is like, it means it's hard to do it all the time, and it really is something that would be good to stop and practice throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's like, you wanna pay attention to the things you learn
Yeah.
elsewhere or here that are like a light bulb, where you're like, oh, that, cause you'll know when you learn something that's like, that is like my major problem. Sometimes there's a lot of them, and it's like, well, how do I,
So like the ideal place that you would initiate it would be deep hip rotators versus the whole leg going out, but you have to gain
It's
that
like-
awareness,
well-
and so I feel like what I also started to do rather than force everything was just go gradually and just do whatever I could with my upper, once you can get into where that
and
feels.
so everybody stand there and think about initiating, like put your fingers around like a low underwear line. So initiate it from there to rotate your femurs, but let your feet come along. So your feet can come off the floor. And Abby, I would say maybe bring your feet a little more narrow. And Kate, too, tiny bit. Yeah, there you go. So really try to track if that feels like ASIS with.
So, what happens for me is if I take my feet and they're a little bit less than perfectly parallel, I can begin to feel it move these muscles, but when I go to more parallel, it's really hard to initiate in the right spot. So is it okay to practice a little bit less?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you have to find the way to access it yourself.
Okay, because I can really feel it better.
So now what I want you guys to do is try to maintain your knee pit rotation. And even if your feet are slightly supinated, which means that, do your toe lifts. Try to maintain your rotation and do toe lifts. So you have two things to do at once, but they might actually assist each other. Because you've already, when you do that rotation, you actually activate your arch more. And you can do 1 foot at a time, you can do both.
Yeah.
The same thing we just did, lifting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, putting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I think we can actually see this, okay, rest 1 second. I just wanna demonstrate, can you relax your rotation, Abby? I just wanna see, I think your feet are a good example. And then rotate. Oh, you have pretty good arch. Come here, Mom. I just want you guys to see what happens to the arch of the foot. So stand, maybe come closer, and face like, so they can see your arches.
Okay.
So, like that. Can you guys see this face there? So relax your rotation completely. Okay, you see that? Now do your rotation. So that's interesting, right? I think that's tremendously interesting because there's all this stuff of like, arch supports, your arch is flat, your arch is this, your arch is that. And if I can just have her rotate her femurs to get that much more, I mean, it's a little false, it's like extra, but even if she didn't do that much compensation with her feet, it still would work. So don't let your feet come up this time, just do rotation. She still has more arch.
Still do, yeah.
So this is where you can really start to see how important the relationship between the femur and the foot is, and the pelvis and the foot, all of those things. So now come down to sitting, and sit maybe just on a block. I think you would like do something else for a second rather than nurse full time. No, I mean I can do this with her. She's just like so much nursing. Take your foot, put your fingers between your toes. And you can sit however you're comfortable. Yesterday, my mom and I were doing some stuff together, and my older one was putting her leg behind her head. And I said, yeah, my legs aren't as flexible as they once were, not like yours. My legs are super tight. Yours aren't as tight as mine. She said, my legs are tight, actually. With her leg behind her head. Angry. Which is so funny. So wiggle your toes back and forth. Just like you're giving a little flexion, extension. Can you wiggle your toes side to side? Sometimes you have to really stabilize your arch to do that. You can kind of circle them. You should be able to get your hand clasped all the way. So like, if you can only go this far, the skinnier part of your finger, work to try and get your fingers all the way to the fat part of the fingers between the toes. And it might take time. Sometimes your feet are tight. Okay, take that foot. And once again, try to lift your toes. One toe. Put that toe down. This time when you watch your other 4 toes and make sure they're not gripping the floor. So my toes like to jam the front part of the toe into the floor to try and like stabilize. It's pretty hard to keep your other toes relaxed. Sometimes you can like put your fingers on them, be like, relax. I obviously have not done this enough lately. Mine are not doing well today. See if you can lift just your second toe with all the other toes down. Just totally not happening.
It's like, It's like when I tried to do that, all the rest of them lifted and the second toe just stayed down. It was up.
It was reverse.
It was a reverse.
Okay, try the other foot.
I can lift 3 together, but not the
So
second one.
do fingers and feet. And first flex back and forth. So some of the reasons, because sometimes this toe stuff and this foot stuff feels pretty small, but some of the reasons it's really important, we've mentioned, are there are so many joints in your foot is one thing. So it's like 25% of your muscles and joints are below the ankle, which is a lot. Then the other aspect that's very important is that your foot is responsible for coordinating much of your motion of your body. And one of the ways it does this, you're making this difficult. One of the ways it does that is it has more greater innervation than a lot of other muscles. So it's like you have, I know you're in pain. Lupin's teeth and molars. You have muscles that have like one nerve fiber. I don't know what to do with you. Like one nerve fiber per 4 muscle fibers in the feet, and one nerve fiber per 1,600 muscle fibers, like in the calf. So does that make sense with the interruptions?
So more nerves, let me get this, more nerves per muscle fiber in the foot.
So a better way to say it, let me just take her. Okay. So greater ratio is a better way to say it. Greater ratio of nerve fibers to muscle fibers. Try your toe lifts again. So, and that greater ratio, let me just say this while she's out. The greater ratio of muscle fibers to nerve fibers should make it possible for us to easily do this. If we all had like, our feet were healthy and our bodies were responding to our feet, we would be able to just like, do this with our toes. They have the innervation to be able to do that. So try to lift just your first toe without gripping your other toes. So what that means is any little bit of foot strength and foot opening, like mobilizing, moving the joints, any little bit of that is going to facilitate the use of those structures. It's like if you imagine you just like taped your hand together even for a week, and it would be pretty hard to then articulate your fingers. That's basically what we've all done with our feet, is that we have flat surfaces, hard surfaces, and shoes. And that combination of things means that we're never having to use our joints or our nerves or our muscles in this area. Somebody's excited. Try just your second toe. And it does make a big difference. Like it really, having your feet work better makes everything work better. Because there's just so much more capacity for taking in and processing information by the feet than we're using right now. Okay, now let's do an experiment. Take your half toe. We're going to do a few calf stretches, then we're going to try toe lifts again. So, stepping up, putting the ball of the foot on the top of the half dome, and then getting the outside edges of your feet straight, and have your legs and feet about ASIS width apart. And then step this forward a little bit.
Her heel's off.
Okay, so slide your foot down. That's tight, yeah. And maybe start so that you're, I'm gonna slide this over a little bit. Try to straighten this foot. Thanks, Joanne, for noticing that. Okay, so then, stepping forward as far as you can, maintain straight feet, ASI width, and your weight on your heels. So as I step that far forward, I'm kind of wanting to like drift forward into it, so I'm gonna back out of that. You came back! Thanks, Mom. Lupin's got like a blood blister on top of her molar. Did your kids ever have that? I had to look it up.
I blanked all that.
I've never looked in their mouths, cause like she opens her mouth really big when she smiles, and you can see on top of the tooth, it's like, so she's going to the dentist tomorrow just to make sure it's like,
Oh, I think we did
Normal.
when everyone had that.
yeah. The dentist said it was normal, but it's gotten bigger, and she's been really not sleeping, and so I just wanna,
Yeah.
but she's like, it's a real difficult time for her.
Yes.
It's like this, it's like that, you are, so switch legs. Hello, hello. I just need you to let me talk a little bit so I can tell them what I'm trying to tell them. The innervation is my favorite topic. Over there?
We saw trucks and bus.
Did you see a bus? But you did get that innervation thing right, that it's like, it's pretty important. Or it'd be like if we didn't, the innervation is like the highest ratio in some of like our mouth, at the base of our skull, our hands and our feet. And we're not using much of it in the feet. So it's like a whole system that's just, you know, offline. So look down and see if you can straighten out your feet. And see if your feet are ASIS with part of getting a little wide there. And the idea of this is that, as we were saying with how the relationship between the pelvis and femur and lower leg and foot is, you know, it's translating back and forth, the calf is an incredibly important piece of that chain. So doing this stretch can help with the way that you're, if you go on my shoulders, the way that you're walking, and if you're accessing your feet. This is fun. Okay, go one more time the first side. Oh, I saw Sandra's baby. Did I tell you that?
No, you told me you're going.
Yeah, I saw Sandra's baby last Tuesday. She's super cute. All mini and sleepy and perfect. And then we also saw a cow being born that same day, which was kind of wild. Just like happened while we were at our friend's house. You were so silly. And then switch, other side. And then we're gonna try our toe lift experiment again. And I actually hope it works better. I don't know for sure that it will, but I think it will. I think we're gonna get more information after doing the calf stretch. Yeah? You singing to them? Can you sing them a song? Sing about the moon. And then drop your ribs. It's hard to drop my ribs with a baby on my shoulders. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now go back, maybe do both feet, because I do want to get to shoulders next. And try lifting your toes. Do like just a few of the things we've done. We've lifted from first to fifth, and then put them down from fifth to first. Try lifting your big toes independently without gripping your other toes. Try lifting just your second toes. You guys feel any difference? I have more space, for sure. You do?
The one, yes, it feels I can do a little better, but I also felt like sitting I wasn't as effective, so I didn't know if I try to do the same thing, sitting makes it somehow different.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know. I wanna
is interesting. That's a good
experiment with that.
question, because sometimes I've had better access to it sitting, maybe because
Right,
I'm
it
like
seems like
looking at it.
You would, and I
But-
didn't.
But, yeah, I mean, I think there's also maybe some of this idea of like loading it and having more of we're working on rotation, because that to me seems to make it work better when I do it. I'd have to think about why that is, or if that's true. Okay, so we're gonna move on to shoulders. These are sort of like two different short classes. Take your blanket and fold it so you make yourself a little bolster for your head and shoulders like we did last week. You're not gonna let me do that. Do you need to go potty? Okay, so.
Another one, Pete?
And then have also your half dome under your head. Can you sit over here? Like this? Okay. Oh, you want to sit on that? Of course you do. Okay, take your arms, press your hands, your wrists and your elbows together in front of your face. And have your bolster a bit under your shoulders. Yes. So it's just like under the tops of the shoulders. After you press, you're going to open your arms out to the side.
So our ribs down and the shoulders up, but we're not raised ribs.
Yeah, not
It's
raised
not
ribs. No, just a little upper. Yeah, you guys are good. So then, yeah, this is why we're changing the time of class. It's fun with you here, but it's really hard. So press and then open. Do it a couple times, and I want you guys to pay attention to dropping your ribs as you press, and then keeping your ribs dropped as you open. It's almost like choose your own adventure class if we just followed what Luke was doing. Yeah. That's great. So now, press and open, and then straighten your arms all the way out. Try to keep a soft bend in your elbows so you're not hyperextending. Keep your ribs down, and then just do some little snow angel motions. So then do this little sequence again. So start with pressing in front of your face. This time straighten your legs if they aren't straight already. It'll just change it a little bit. Press in front of your face, squeeze really hard. See if you can press harder this time. Just get a little more activation in the front of your chest. Press your wrists, your hands, your elbows. And then keeping your ribs dropped, slowly open your arms around your head. Good. And then again, press. This time when you open your arms, keep your fingers and your wrists extended. So try to be aware of like reaching through your fingers and your wrists, because sometimes the tension in the hand will prevent the shoulders from stretching. So not letting the hands like curl up. And open. Yep. And then straighten your arms and do some little snow angels again. One more time to see if you can keep your ribs dropped. So even if your arms have to come more away from the floor to drop the ribs. Okay, so now we're going to find out what the posterior deltoid does. So curl your arm like this, one arm. You're gonna take the other arm and reach back to feel the posterior deltoid. Yeah, that's it. So there's a muscle right there under your hand. And Kate, see if you reach under. That might help you. Yeah. If it's hard to reach over, reach under your armpit. You want to feel, it's like if I do this with my elbow, I want to feel that it's not just my elbow going back and my shoulder going forward, but it's my shoulder and my elbow going backwards. So keep your arm kind of out to the side and then press back from just that muscle. So it's like right at the shoulder joint. Is this making sense at all? Okay.
So like pressing down toward the floor.
So it's like, can we just stop nursing? This is like really stressful. It's like my whole day right now. I know it hurts. So I should have drugged you. So try sit up for a second. It might work better sitting because gravity will assist you in this, but maybe if you get it sitting, it'll be easier. So if you take your arm, put your hand on the back of your deltoid. So your deltoid is like kind of cuffing your whole shoulder, and the anterior part is usually tighter and more active. The posterior part isn't working for us very well. So see if you can press your elbow back and feel that muscle working. Just try it that way for a second. And usually your arm has to be out to the side. So not down here, but really out to the side. You guys feel it?
This is where
Get it?
I don't feel what I mean. I don't feel what I mean.
So what I want to show you guys, this is like totally not working for me right now. But if I take her off the boob, she's gonna just keep crying. So
I can take her outside with the tracks in there.
parenting rocks. So what I want to show you guys is lay down and get into this position. So it's like your hand is curled over your armpit. And find your posterior deltoid. Now, and if you really can't reach it, if you can get a sense of it working, that's also an option. Then try to keep it working as you uncurl your arm. So, try it on one side, then try it on the other side. Yes, don't bother Rhiannon and go back. Nah, So what do you guys notice when you try to do that? Yeah, so let's try to get it working better. Turn onto your belly. So move your bolster, turn onto your belly. And go get that ball. So start with one hand under your forehead and the other arm like in a goalpost, like this. Yeah. And see if you just, a few times, can you think about lifting your arm away from the floor? And think about, well, just lift your arm away from the floor and we'll refine it after we do that a few times. So lifting your arm away from the floor, just a few times, lifting and lowering. Can you think about lifting your humerus more than your scapula? So like, maybe move your scapula back and forth, your shoulder blade, a couple times to feel like, we don't want to emphasize that motion so much right now. We want to emphasize the lifting of the humerus, kind of like you're pulling your arm bone back into the socket more. And see if that makes a difference. And then do the other side. Arm in a goalpost, and first just lift and lower the arm. Thank you. And then think of like, move your scapula around and say, okay, I'm not going to do that motion so much. I'm going to try to emphasize like lifting the humerus back into the socket. Good. So now take both arms and put them down by the side seams of your pants or your shorts. Push your palms of your hands into the side seam of your legs. of your pants. Yeah. Now, can you feel right there that your scapula are wide? They're not pinched together, they're wide. So keep your scapula wide and press your elbows and your wrists and your hands into the side of your body and hover your chest off of the ground like an inch. Your chest and your head, I should say. Yeah. Now, can you keep the scapula wide and press into the side of your body? So then you will feel, yeah, come back down. Now you're gonna do that one more time. So press into the side of the body. And then hover one arm slightly more towards the ceiling. That will make your posterior deltoid work a lot. Now if you bring it out to the side a little bit, and hover it towards the ceiling even more, you'll feel it work even harder. Try the other arm. Hover it towards the ceiling, and then bring it out to the side. Bring it back down. Good. Come down. Flip over onto your backs again. This time just lie flat on the floor. With your knees bent. If your chin is jutting towards the ceiling, put a little something under your head. Yes. Bend your knees and have your feet flat on the floor. And think about having your feet parallel again. And, oh, thank you. Have like 6 to 8 inches between your butt and your heels. You guys are looking good. So now, we're gonna do some bridging to sort of lead into this. Keep your arms down by your sides. We're gonna try a couple things with this. I don't know, just however. Press your feet into the floor and lift your butt off the floor like an inch. That's a lot of inches. Can you do that without tucking your tailbone between your legs? Yeah. So when you lower down, nothing should change except you're hinging at your hip. Yeah. So what I want you to try now is what happens when you press into the front of your foot to lift. So try pressing into the front of your foot to lift. And then coming down, lifting and lowering. What happens when you press into your heel to lift. And then further, what happens if you flex your feet so you're only on your heel? Lift and lower that way. And then bring your feet down. What happens if you come up onto your toes? So you feel how it's really different sequencing in the legs and the butt and whatever you're doing. Okay, now what we're gonna do is I want you to keep pressing through your feet, but press more on the heel. Not with lifting your feet, just more on the heel. Lift up a little bit. Now, stay there and lift one knee towards your chest without unleveling your pelvis. So keeping your pelvis level. Now, can you, on the standing leg, with the pelvis of the standing leg, draw a tiny figure 8 with your hips? Very small. So that you're just like kind of swooping your hips in like an infinity sign that's like the same as your butt, like if I'm doing like that. Yeah, come down. Do the other side. Thank you. Close. So now I'll come down. Bring your arms up in the air so that your hands are standing on your scapula. So let your scapula drop towards the ground. And really have contact with the back of the shoulders and the ground. So like that same posterior deltoid area. And then try and lift and lower with your arms up, still pressing into the heel. I'm not going to open that right now. Lift up and lower down. lift up, and lower down. Then one more time, lift one leg. Can you draw an infinity sign with the pelvis again? Or is it now impossible? It might be impossible. Switch legs, do the other side. Gets pretty wobbly once the arms are up. And then come down. So it's just another way to show you like what's happening between the feet and the feet and the pelvis. So now we're gonna do this, we're gonna try to do this thing again. So take your arm, curl your arm in, and try to reach over or under and feel your posterior deltoid. So can you contract that part to draw your arm back? Yeah? Does it work better now? Okay, yeah. So contract that and then try to slowly unfold your arm while keeping that muscle active. You might only get to like here, but that's the limitation of the tightness of your arm, of your lower arm. And then come back, try the other side. So press back. First, activate that muscle. And then slowly unfold your arm. Can you find some music? Like one side I can keep the deltoid active and almost unfold my arm all the way. And the side that's my dominant hand, I really can't. Yeah, how many of you guys have a water bottle? Okay, so sit up. Sit up on maybe your block or something. Just sit up on something. Have a water bottle. I have a water bottle that you can use if you need one. So bring your arm first like this. Oh, it doesn't have water. Well, I can give her mine. I can give her mine after. Yeah, go put water in. So first, what I want you guys to work on is just go in this position, which is like hard, kind of, you know. Try to drop your shoulder so that you're not doing it like I would love to do this right now with my shoulder coming towards my ear, and instead put your shoulder away from your ear. Now, can you keep, and you can keep your hand there too to try and remind it, keep your shoulder away from your ear, and can you rotate your arm without your elbow dropping? So that I'm just bringing the water bottle from facing the floor to facing the ceiling, not by lifting my shoulder, by rotating my humerus. So if you are maintaining the level of your arm, you should feel a lot of work in your deltoid. You guys feel that in there? Switch arms. So first try to establish the position so that your shoulder drops. And another thing I will say is if you feel like, see this, if you have humerus, I know you need a dry pan. So if your humerus bumps forward like this, try to bring your elbow a little bit forward so that you're not pressing forward in the shoulder joint. So Rihanna, do that. Bring your elbow forward so that this can go back. So elbow forward in front of your body. Yeah, there you go. So first shoulder down, then rotate, and then come back down. The other thing is your wrists should stay straight. This is a really good way to get stronger in your lower leg. Take a while. Can of food works, box broth, whatever. So books. Like a kitten, that would be wiggly. And you'll notice, so on one side it's a lot easier than the other. So one more thing I want you to do is, I know, go back to the first side. And now, can you bring your arm behind you to access your posterior deltoid? So it's not like elbowing somebody this way. You see how that pushes my shoulder forward? It's drawing this, imagine you can draw this whole bone backwards. Do you guys feel it a little bit? Try the other side. Yeah, Adventures in Parenting 101, something I never want to do again if you live in. Maybe not till you're older. Okay, so yes, we are all done. Why don't you nurse so I can actually say goodbye to these people? So that's that's pretty easy to do when you're just sitting there. It's good to have things to do when you're just sitting there. Try and get your arms, that will get your arms really, really strong. The thing you have to maintain is keeping your shoulders down, because it's also pretty easy to do it where your humerus is bumping forward and your shoulders going up, and then you're just gonna be potentially injuring your shoulders and strengthening all the same patterns of like shoulders up and shoulders hunched. So really finding a way to do it. I mean, you can see, you can even do it without a water bottle and just try to find the motion. It's like rotating your humerus, which is not easy. But you guys did very well. Thank you for bearing with me in this little one. You got the email that class is different time next week. It will be
Starting next week, so August 1st.
August 1st. August already.
It's August 1st.
It's August.
Somebody has a birthday that day.
Is that your birthday next week? Oh, cool. Happy almost birthday. Thank you guys
You
very
can
much.
celebrate the number of days that your age is. We should celebrate the number of days that your age is.
You did very well. Grandmommy. Very good. Can you help me out?
Did you sign in? Sherry, did you sign in?
Yes, I did. Oh, he's good here.
And, yeah,
Every ball is in there.
I'm sorry, Lubin, I forgot you were wearing only a trainer. You need a diaper. Thank you.
Did you bring this one?
Oh, you got that?
Where can I buy a half of this?
What's up?
Where can I buy a half of this?
Where do you buy half tones, you guys, usually? Do you have some for sale?
I might have sold it.
I go and just buy them, you know, one at a time.
Yeah, if you search half roller online, you'll find them.
Okay.
I got some really good blue firm ones online somewhere, and I can't remember where. It was like,
The
I mean, you can find them on Amazon for
ones I
sure.
found, so,
Yeah, I haven't seen
what I did with the ones I sold, was I bought, their shoulder tubes. And then I can have so it is like.
Do you wanna go to Grandmommy's house?
I
You go to Grandmommy's? Do you?
I've also bought them with just like half cylinder wall. That was easy, just cutting them loose, but try to do the circle.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got like a pattern in paper and do. And then they're good knife, I don't know, maybe you're looking at some equipment that can do that, but.
This way, so I can
So that was the least expensive way to do it versus ordering online.
yes. You guys are cooking tomorrow, right?
And, so they were to go to the store today, they get them the weight of it.
Yeah, we have some in the freezer. We should check and make sure we have enough for whatever the recipe says.
Wonder if they were hot or something, so they opened the door.
I forgot.
I got the next step done on the snow house.
Cool.
I have to see it Thursday night. Stuff done.
You doing some dancing? I thought you'd be good at that. Yeah, you're like ultra pretty, dude.
is.